From Fox 8 Sports, this is the Overtime Podcast.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Fazende, riding shotgun as he does each and every podcast. This is Andre Johnson Jr. Do not forget the Jr. Very important to remember the JR at the end of the name. Before we get into today's content, be sure to like, to share, to rate, to review. If you're watching us on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, get the bell notification for when we drop that fire content. And also, hello to the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Glad you have found us here. And stay here Sunday. Trust me, we will have pregame, postgame, everything you need. Saints versus Cardinals. So thank you if you have found us here. If you know people that are looking for us, tell your friends that the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network is up and running. And we got some fire content on this beautiful network we just started a couple of months ago. All right, Andre. It's Friday, and Friday's on game week. It's finally here. The game plan is in. You're getting closer and closer to that football weekend. We start prep football tonight here in the city, our first Fox 8 Football Friday show. So really, it really gets rolling here, college football in week 2. And, of course, Saints and Cardinals week 1, Sunday inside the Superdome. Friday is always a big day because the injury report comes out. And it is a big, not a lot of names, but some important names on this injury report coming out today, Friday, 2 days before the Arizona Cardinals game. But first things first, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good. You know, you mentioned high school football. I get to go to my first high school game of the season, going to Landry versus Easton tonight. If you see me there, feel free to say hello, talk about all of that. Shout out to the Saints, by the way. You see, we've replaced our Super Bowl ball with one of the new Saints helmets, and, it looks a lot better up close. I'm really liking, the fleur-de-lis, the across the top, so that's really fun. But what isn't fun, Sean, are early injuries, and that injury bug is kind of bit early in the season for the Saints. As we look at the injury report, there's good news and bad news. The good news is, you'll have Alante Taylor coming back. He'll play. Christian Boyd, who was a little iffy earlier this week, he'll play. But the bad news is 2 starters out for the Saints Sunday. Number 1, offensive lineman, left guard, Trevor. Number 2, edge rusher with an injury that came up in practice on Wednesday. He'll be out on Sunday. That's Chase Young. So, Sean, as we look ahead to Sunday, the Saints are without their left guard. They're without their edge rusher. Can they overcome the absence of Trevor Penning and Chase Young?
Well, the short answer is we're about to find out, but, I don't do short answers. So we're gonna get into it. So first things first. A little irony, right? 2024 was the season of injuries for the Saints. Everyone seemingly at some point in the year missed some time at some point in the season, except for 2 guys. 2 guys stood tall throughout it all. They were Chase Young and Trevor Penning. 2 guys with lengthy injury histories, both played all 17 games in the season of injury 2024. That will not be the case in 2025. It is interesting. Chase Young situation. Let's start there. Premier pass rusher, edge pass rusher. I thought he had a phenomenal camp. Thought he had a phenomenal camp last year. Thought he was really gravitating to the system. Really felt like, and the Saints paid him to be, one of those premier edge pass rushers that he kind of flirts with. He's flirted with throughout his career, inching closer. Hopefully he can be that guy. I don't know what the game plan was exactly, but I can promise you this. Defensively, it featured a lot of Chase Young, getting after the passer off the edge. He was featured prominently in it. In fact, how many times have I discussed on this show and other shows that we do why I believe this can be a top-half defense, why I believe the foundation for this defense is on solid footing heading into the season. One of the biggest reasons was the strength of the edge pass rushers, and Chase Young, in my opinion, was the best one in that group, is the best one in that group. The injury itself, Andre, sucks. It's tough, but that's football. It doesn't necessarily bother me, the injury. What bothers me is when and where.
Yeah.
That is key. Chase Young was hurt during Wednesday's practice. That is key. Why? Well, because the game planning process Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday had already begun for Arizona. As I said, that game plan likely included Chase Young in mind prominently. Injuring during practice means the coaches had to pivot midweek to the chance that he would not be able to play. Fortunately, they had some time to do so. Happened on Wednesday, didn't practice Thursday, didn't practice Friday. Had some time to do so, but this isn't like going into a work week not knowing you're pretty much understanding you're not going to have a player. This is midweek adjusting on the fly. And you got to do it as a coach. We understand that, but you'd rather not have to do it if you can help it. Also concerning. This dates back to last year. How many players have now been injured in practice? Have now had a flare-up or something happen to them in practice during a game week? It's dating back a couple seasons. In my opinion, far too many. That has to be something they're at least monitoring, right? That can't be something they can just blow over. That has to be, okay, what do we do this week? I know it was a Wednesday padded practice. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but this is now a few instances now over the last couple seasons where guys have got injured during practice of a game week. Not in training camp, not in preseason, during a regular season game week. Back to the question. Can they survive without him, Andre? Like I said, we'll see. But who do they turn to? Cam Jordan?
Yep.
Jonathan Bullard? Rumph? Fadil Diggs? Maybe. Do they blitz more than they anticipated? Clearly, this is not the ideal situation they wanted to be in. They wanted to deal with heading into their season opener. The best pass rusher injuring his calf on the Wednesday before the game at practice. And look, I love Chase Young. I was very high on him, despite the sort of tease-like nature he's sort of given us over the last couple of seasons. I feel like he's ready to burst in this 3-4 system. I feel like he feels like he's ready to burst, which is key. He had a clean bill of health. Now he's banged up. Hopefully this will not linger. Hopefully this will not last much longer. But I could tell you, Andre, it's sort of something you've probably noticed just following the NFL. Mm-hmm. Calf strain does not sound painful. It does not sound extreme. Why do they always linger? They always seem to linger, these calf strains. So I know Kellen downplayed it. They're optimistic. Chase Young is optimistic about coming back. It's not a big deal. I hope so. But clearly, this is an injury to watch. In Penning's case, look, it sucks, but come on, this was the expected outcome. I think everybody was kind of trending in this direction, and when you look at where the recovery had been, I know the boot had come off. We saw him in the locker room the last couple of weeks, walking and talking, walking pretty well. The turf toe injury, it's another one of those injuries. Doesn't sound like it would be a huge injury, but for an offensive lineman, it is huge. And usually the timetable for that is 4 to 6 weeks. This will be 4 weeks on Sunday. He injured it, obviously, against the LA Chargers. So you'd rather have him than not, but I think the difference is you went into the game week planning to not have Trevor Penning. You will have Dylan Radins. Dylan Radins is an experienced veteran player in this league. He started a lot of games. You brought him in here to be quality depth. You didn't think you'd have to call on that quality depth so quickly, but yet here he is. He will be your starter at left guard. You'd rather have your starting 5 than not, but they'll have 4 out of 5. And look, this is supposed to be the strength of the team. It's hard to get a full grade if you don't have all 5 guys, but nonetheless, they're going to roll it 4 out of 5. I think the Saints were a little more expecting of this. They understood the Penning situation. The Chase Young thing was just an unfortunate thing that happened during practice, and then they had to adjust. So will they be able to survive both guys out? We'll see. I think they needed all hands on deck. They're not going to have it. It's the NFL. You got to manage.
I'm actually the opposite. As I look at the 2 injuries, Chase Young and Trevor Penning, I'm much more concerned about the offensive line injury than I am the defensive line injury, because as I look at the defensive line, and the main guy who's probably going to have to step up and play more time due to Chase Young's injury, that's Cam Jordan. I looked at the final 8 games of the season, the ones that Darren Rizzi and the new defensive line coach took over for. And I know a lot of people, when they hear Cam Jordan, despite him being one of the greatest Saints of all time, they kind of roll their eyes because there's a sense that he's washed. And sure, he's not the 12, 13, 14, 15 sack guy that he was in the past. But if you look at the 8 games he played at the end of last year, he played 55% of snaps in those games. In those snaps, in 8 games, he had 24 tackles, 4 sacks, 7 tackles for loss, 7 quarterback hits, and 2 passes swatted. That doesn't sound like a guy who can't still go to me. Now, is he the guy who I'm going to send out there for 95% of the snaps? No. Is he a guy who can, if he started every game, can go get your 14 sacks this year? Probably not. He's not as good as he once was. But as a plug-in guy, as a substitution for Chase Young, as a guy who can, he has a bunch of experience in this role, I'm really not worried about Cam Jordan. I still feel like Cam Jordan can play impactful football, and we saw that against one of the hardest quarterbacks to pin down last season against Jaden Daniels. We saw Cam Jordan have an impact against the Cleveland Browns, a game that the Saints won 35-14. Cam Jordan can still be impactful in spots. Is he going to take over the game defensively? Probably not. That's what you got Carl Granderson on the other side for. That's what you got Devon Gottschall in the interior for. That's what you got Brian Brzee out there for. Cam Jordan doesn't have to take over the game, but can he be impactful in his spot? I think he'll be fine. So I'm not really too worried about the defensive line. Obviously, it sucks losing a guy at the caliber of a Chase Young, but when you have a veteran like Cam, I'm good. I think he can get the job done. But when I look at the offensive line, that's where I'm the most worried, because when I think about Trevor Penning, if he were to go down, obviously you've got Dylan Radunz, and I've touched on this on the podcast before, if somebody goes down, it's next man up. Well, when you looked at next man up a few weeks ago, your next men up were Will Clapp, out for the season now, Landon Young, out for the season now, Nick Saldiveri, out for the season now. 3 guys who could have stepped in and played left guard if something were to happen to Trevor Penning are gone. You don't have them. So now you've got Dylan Radunz, who, again, a veteran. I like him being able to fill into this role. But what if something happens to Radunz? Who moves the left guard in that situation? Is it the young guy from South Carolina? Maybe, but it's not a great position when you look at an offensive line unit that's already been decimated, by depth issues and by injuries. When you're looking at offensive line unit who we think that's the best 5 that they can put out, Banks, Penning, Ruiz, McCoy, and Fuaga, and they haven't had a lot of opportunities to build that continuity because Trevor Penning goes out early in the preseason. So if I had to pick one of them to play, it would be Trevor Penning. So to me, that's a bigger loss.
Yeah, you can make it a case for he's a guy. In the offensive line, they want that to be the strength of the team. And I don't think anyone, after watching the preseason, is ready to call that the strength of the team. In fact, they're ready to call it more of a concern. So to only have 4 of your 5 is obviously tough. Now, in fairness, the last 2 preseason games when more of the starters were playing, the last preseason more of the starters were playing, they didn't have Penning, so they had Radunz. So this is essentially the same offensive line they've played with the last preseason game. Did anyone miss? Was Fuaga out for that one?
For which one?
The final preseason game.
Preseason.
I don't know.
I think he played.
I have to go back and check. But there is major concern about this unit being what they want them to be, which is not just a good, capable, competent line. They want it to be the strength of the team because of how much they've invested in it. So to have one of those investments not be available, I think that's certainly a concern. However, if the Penning situation does not linger, I think you can survive with a Dylan Radunz type if you were filling in. If the rest of the line were as good as they were supposed to be, which is obviously a concern. So it's kind of got this ripple effect because, you're trying to build some continuity on this front 5 to see how good they can be. One guy is now out, so another guy is now in. And so you're making changes or you're having an injury as you're trying to grow with this group. So, yeah, I can see how that could have certainly a collective effect. What concerns me with the Chase Young situation, you're right. I think Cam Jordan can step in. I think Cam Jordan can give you some quality snaps. I don't think he's going to do the 60 snaps a game thing that he did at one point in his career. But I do think just being around the organization, just being around the practices and just kind of watching Chase Young work, I think he was really hungry. He was very motivated. He got the contract, and I think he was very motivated to prove that contract was money well spent. And I just felt like the team or the defensive staff had sort of gravitated to him because of how well he was playing. So your pass rush plan with Chase Young, you may not be blitzing as much. With Cam, or if you're in a personnel grouping where you got like a Fadil Diggs or a Chris Rump or a Bullard on the field, are you blitzing more? And when you blitz more, you can leave yourself vulnerable on the back end, and you got an experienced quarterback that you're playing. That's not necessarily great against the blitz, but if he breaks contain on a blitz, that could be trouble because you've already sent the guy up and he's already passed, and you got one less guy on defense. So these injuries all have a ripple effect. And we'll see. It's not so insurmountable that it can't be overcome because I think they do have quality veterans that can step up and give you quality play in a tight window. We'll see if that is enough combined with everything else to get the victory for the Saints on Sunday against an Arizona Cardinals team who I keep saying this, they're better than you realize. They are so much better than you realize. I don't think people realized how big of a jump they took last year because they were kind of a forgotten team. 4-13 in year one under Gannon to 8-9. That's the normal chain of progress in the NFL from year one to year two of the coach, and then from year two to year three. I guarantee you this team has got playoff aspirations. So it's going to be an interesting matchup for the Saints on Sunday.
Well, we talked about who the Saints won't have on Sunday, but I mentioned it earlier in the podcast. They will have cornerback Alante Taylor, which was definitely something I was worried about because I wasn't ready to send Kool-Aid, Ugo, Yadam, and Quincy Riley out there without the best cornerback on the team. So we talked about, how much those injuries could potentially hurt the Saints, but how much does having Alante Taylor back for this game help the Saints?
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it. He's the best DB on the team right now, at least best corner on the team right now. Before he got injured, they were doing that thing where he was in base personnel, he was playing on the outside, and then nickel and dime personnel, he's playing on the inside. I've never been a big fan of that. We'll see if that continues this week. That seemed like a lot to ask for a guy that hasn't played in a long time to do all those, to play all those reps. But no, he gives you another element. If you're gonna blitz, he's a guy that's really good at blitzing. He's a guy really good at timing the blitz. Then it bolsters your depth in the secondary because I actually like Ugo Amadi as a nickel, as a slot corner, but he can now help you. I know Jordan Howden's questionable. He can maybe provide some depth in the safety room if he's active on game day. And then, look, you bring Alante Taylor in. That means now you have Kool-Aid and you have Isaac Yadam and you have a young kid in Quincy Riley and you have Ugo Amadi. It just completes the room a little bit better. Now, the question is, he's overcoming a soft tissue injury. He talked to us earlier in the week. He was itching to get back. He was back to full participation. Is he caught up on the game plan? Is he caught up on sort of has he done enough to shake off the rust, so to speak? That's a long time to not play. And then all of a sudden, it goes 0 to 100 when week one gets here. So it helps. And if they definitely took their time. I mean, he got injured way back when we were at practice before the Chargers game? It was definitely, we were in California. Was it August 8th, August 9th? So he's been out a good month. So if he's ready to go, that's great. Hopefully he's 100% because I don't want to come back here on Monday saying he clearly was not ready, and that's kind of the excuse that they would use. Well, he's just coming off an injury. I think if he's ready to go, he's ready to go, and hopefully they see him being the Alante Taylor that we all expected him to be going into the season with Brandon Staley, given that versatility. So we'll see with Alante Taylor.
Yeah, especially when it comes to keeping Kyler kind of in that pocket. We've seen how dangerous he can be when it comes to blitzing off the edge when he's in the slot as a nickel cornerback. And we saw it last year where he sacked Bryce Young 2 times. Bryce Young isn't the mobile quarterback that Kyler Murray is, but Bryce Young can get out of there. Dak Prescott, somebody else who he sacked last year. We saw it last night in the game against the Eagles. Dak Prescott can get out of there when he needs to. So having a guy like Alante Taylor, being able to send him on those blitzes off of the edge, I think that'll really help in trying to contain Kyler on Sunday. And then also, you've got one of the better young emerging receivers in Marvin Harrison Jr. And having your best cornerback, now obviously Alante is not the kind of guy that's going to chase Marvin wherever he goes. They don't have many cornerbacks like that in the league anymore, but having your best corner for their best receiver when necessary, I think is a big aid for the Saints, a big aid for the secondary, because I'm not trying to ask too much out of Kool-Aid McKinstry, who had a great preseason and training camp. He's still a second-year cornerback that's stepping into a starting role. Out of a Quincy Riley, someone else who was really good in training camp, he had the interception in the preseason, still a rookie, getting used to the NFL. I'm not trying to throw them that deep into the water. Let's give them time to ease their way into it, and having Alante Taylor back does that.
It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, because the secondary has always been something we were monitoring, in particular the cornerback room. If these young players become who we think they can be, it'll be okay. Yeah. It's just young. It's very youthful outside of Isaac Yadam. Kool-Aid's going into a second year. I love the progress Quincy Riley showed, but he is still a rookie. I've long said I like the safety room right now with the Saints, so that can certainly help aid in certain situations. So I definitely think it's something to really look for going forward, because I went into this week concerned that they were not going to have Alante Taylor. In fact, it was going to be good news or pleasant surprise if he is able to play. Because, man, the change of the direction, the stop, the start, the blitz, the run control, where you gotta hit a guy, kind of playing that apex star defender role, and the stop and starting and the contact. Sometimes that can do some things to your to the soft tissue injury. So if he's ready to go, he's ready to go. I know this. He's a very smart football player, and you can't have enough of those guys. And Brandon Staley, as I said before, is a very modern defensive coordinator. And in these modern schemes, that guy that plays the slot, that you trust to play the slot to handle a lot of different roles, covering slot receivers, blitzing off the edge, providing run support. And he's not a very big guy, but providing run support. So if you trust that guy to be that guy and he's ready to go, then we got to put all our faith and trust in the coaches that he can be that guy. So I'm very curious to see how Alante Taylor does, because if he plays well, he could be one of the keys to the victory.
That's true.
He could be a key to a win for the Saints if he is 100% ready to go and can lock down whoever's going to play the slot, or if he's on the outside, or plays on the outside. And obviously this is a team that mixes and matches personnel. They do a lot of multiple tight end sets, which can cause some issues. But if he's ready to go, he's ready to go. So you get your plus on the back end, but you're a little weakened in the front end. If you look at the numbers, the way the roster shakes out, it's probably, if you got to be short one area, it's probably the spot you want to be at. If you got to be, but if you want to be full in another area, being at the cornerback room is probably the spot you want to be full in the other area, just based off where the numbers shook out in the entire roster.
Yep, and now, you mentioned potentially getting a win and the keys to that win. Now we look ahead to the game itself, and that's a game that you said in the past you think is a winnable game for the Saints. Season opener, week 1 against the Cardinals. What are our expectations for that game?
Oh, I don't know. It's because, I keep saying this, I don't know how it's going to look offensively for the Saints. I talked to Velus Jones Jr., you'll see it on Sunday, and I said, well, why did you want to come here? Why? I mean, he wasn't a huge free agent, but, he was a guy that was a free agent. What sold you wanting to come here? He said he played for the Bears, and Keenan Allen was his teammate. And he raved about Kellen Moore, how he knows how to put guys in positions to win, but also keep it simple. Spencer Rattler kind of echoed those sentiments in his thoughts. So I think the element of surprise is something that the Cardinals are very aware of. And if they're so aware of that, sometimes you can overthink it. And that's why I think the Saints have an advantage. I think it's their biggest advantage. I also think it would really, really help if they ran the football and created some turnovers. Give the young quarterback, Spencer Rattler, a couple of extra opportunities with some takeaways. Kyler Murray is a guy, he threw 11 picks last year. I wouldn't call him a turnover machine, but also wouldn't say he's the guy that just always takes care of the football. Yeah. So there may be some opportunities, and who knows? If you're able to get the thing going quickly and get a lead and the crowd gets going, you might be able to leave Sunday 1-0, something not a whole lot of people are expecting right now.
That's true. We're going to see what this team is made out of on Sunday on both sides of the ball. First, I'm looking at defense, because I think that's the better unit on this team right now. We're going to see where that run defense is at, because this is a Cardinals team. James Conner, their running back, he's one of the most underrated running backs in the NFL. He can pound that football, and we're going to see if the Saints, with this new system, with Devon Godchaux, who was brought in to stuff the run, because the Saints once upon a time were a lockdown run defense. Now they've kind of turned into a defense that hasn't been able to stop the run as consistently. We're going to see if having Brandon Staley, if having Godchaux, if having all of this newness on the defense, if that's able to shore up the run defense. We're going to see if they can guard tight ends, because the Cardinals have one of the best tight ends in the league in Trey McBride, and we've seen the Saints struggle in the past with tight ends. We've seen the Saints of the past struggle with mobile quarterbacks.
They've got all the things that give them trouble.
That's what I'm saying. When you're talking about a consistent running game, guarding tight ends, mobile quarterbacks, the Cardinals have it all. The Saints of the past would have struggled with all of these things. Now they've got a new DC. They've got new players, a lot of new players in the secondary, new guys on the line, rookies with a lot of upside and potential. We're going to see if they can do a better job shutting those things down than they have in the past. I think the Saints get out early to a pretty big lead. I think the defense makes a big play that kind of gets that dome rocking early, and the Saints could potentially take control of the game early, do what we both expect them to do, is run the ball, control the clock. On offense, We're going to see what that offense has. And I've said it for Spencer Rattler. I am challenging Spencer Rattler. Show us why you won this job. Show us why the Rat Pack is so rabid in their love and appreciation for you. Show us why Kellen Moore chose you even though he drafted Tyler Shuck. No more excuses. You've got your receivers.
He's got
You've
more
got
than
your
enough now.
offensive line. You've got your running back. Let's see what Rattler's made of. No, I'm not expecting him to throw for 365 yards and 4 touchdowns. Can he take care of the ball? Can he make smart decisions? Can he manage the game? Can he facilitate the offense? If he does that, if the defense does what I mentioned earlier, the Saints can leave week 1 with a win.
You predicting it?
No, I think no, I'm not. If you go back to our podcast where we talked about the records for the Saints, I do think they'll lose this game. I do think they'll jump out early. Like I said, I think there'll be a big play to get the dome rocking, either a big play by the offense or a big defensive play. But as the game goes on 4 quarters, I need to see that this team can play 4 quarters because we have not seen that, especially from the offense yet. I think the Cardinals leave with a win, but I think it's close.
And I'm ready to see Spencer with the full arsenal and most of and basically no like preambles or like qualifiers when you talk about his play. Like he's got enough there to win with. I want to see him take advantage of that opportunity. I want to see him take advantage of the skills around him and play clean ball. I think what one of the job is they trust him to make fewer mistakes, so he can't be making a lot of mistakes or big time crucial mistakes in big moments. So we'll see what happens. I have to go back and look. I think back when we did that, I predicted a win.
You did.
I think I did.
If I remember correctly, you did.
Do I still feel confident? I don't, but I guess I got to stay with what I picked. I mean, look, studying the Cardinals has me concerned. Their roster is so much better than people realize. So. But that's the great thing. Now we can talk ball. The game is coming Sunday. All right. We got to get out of here. That was fun, wasn't it?
It was fun.
Andre Johnson Jr., Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.